All right. Thank you for joining us, everybody. We're going to be starting our slide presentation in just 1 second. You just hang with us for a little bit. We appreciate your patience. But if not, we can get going with the program. What did we just get started with the program? Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Good afternoon. Buenas tardes a todos. Saludos. I am Patricia Perez, and I am AARP California State President Emeritus. Welcome. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our first Let's Talk Dinero with AARP event of the year. And if getting your finances in order was one of your New Year's resolutions, then you came to the right place, because today we're talking about financial planning. And to help us with today's discussion, it's my pleasure to welcome our speaker, Sheikh Kulyate. And let me tell you about him. Sheikh is a proud U.S. Navy veteran. Thank you for your service, Sheikh. He's also a financial educator and mentor with decades of experience helping families across the country achieve their financial goals and dreams. Sheikh is part of the How Money Works company, where he is responsible for crafting solid financial strategies tailored to meet both short and long-term objectives. But we always start these conversations with a poll to give our speakers insight on our audience. So we're going to start today's conversation with a question about your primary financial goal. So if you don't mind, answer this poll question. What is your top, the number one reason, what is your financial goal for this year? Do you want to build an emergency fund? Do you want to pay off debt? Save for a major purchase? Invest in long-term growth, so you're still looking at revenue projections, growing your business revenue, or other? So what would be the reason? Here's a year, you have your financial goals. What would you like to do with your money? What is it that you want to do with your money? So let's see. Thank you so much. Thank you. Keep answering. We're starting with our poll question. What is your top financial goal for 2025? And let's see, some people are still answering, but let me end the poll and share the results. And people are still looking to grow their income. They're still looking for long-term growth. And the other is that a major purchase. Wow, that's an interesting one. So that's wonderful. I'm also interested in some of the other, maybe on the chat, because other paying off debt and emergency fund are all kind of the same, but the number one, people still want to grow their income. So thank you so much for sharing your information. If you're just joining, I know people will be, coming in throughout, but I'm Patricia Perez. I'm an AARP volunteer, and I serve as AARP California State President Emeritus. And joining us is Sheikh Kulyate. He's a financial advisor with How Money Works. And now, Sheikh, I want to turn over the program over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Patricia. And thank you to the AARP staff. Adriana has been a great help as well. And I thank you all for allowing me on here to talk to your clients. And I'm here happy to serve. So with that being said, we've got a lot to cover. So I'm going to do a screen share. And
Yeah.
what we're
I'm
going to
sorry.
talk is,
Um,
oh, yes, ma'am.
No, just want
You
to
hear me
let,
okay?
yes,
Oh,
we do, but right now that you said you have lots to share, just want to
yes.
remind everybody that we're recording this session. So don't worry if there's something that you missed. Later, you can come back and revisit this session. So if there's anything that you missed, you can come back and view the video. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
It's okay. All right. So, again, good evening, and happy to have you guys on. So, yes, my name's Sheik Kuyate, and I'll be your financial educator for the next hour. And at the end of this course, you'll be offered a free book, no strings. It's called How Money Works. Stop Being a Sucker. So, if you're interested, just let the panel know, and be more than happy to serve you. So let's go ahead and dive in now. Um, why do we call it How Money Works? Stop being a sucker? Well, Benjamin Franklin kind of quotes, he nails a quote and he says, an investment in knowledge pays best interest. And I think that's true. So that's why we're all here. Today, you're going to learn how to start thinking like the wealthy instead of like a sucker. So why do we use the term sucker? Is probably what people are asking. All right. Well, it sucks. Um, your time up, it sucks up your freedom, sucks up your income. Not knowing how money works. Right? So today's class is split into two parts. The first, we'll discover basic financial literacy concepts that you should be taught in schools, but they are not. But knowledge alone isn't enough. That's why we're going to have something called the 7 money milestones that gives you an action plan that shows you exactly how to put the concepts to work for you and your family. So uh, we found out that financial illiteracy is the #1 economic crisis in the world. Over 5 billion people are affected by this. So it's not just an issue in America, it's an issue globally. And so, what exactly is financial illiteracy? Frederick Douglass said once you learn to read, you will be forever free. If there were if this were the early 1900s, there'd be still millions of adults in our nation who couldn't read. Uh, they weren't financially illiterate, they were illiterate. So imagine what life would be like if you couldn't read a prescription bottle or a bus schedule, a child's report card, public education. Over the last 100 years have changed that. So today is it's not common that someone can't read, but somehow it still is common that people are financially illiterate. So we're here to change that. All right. So here are some sobering realities. 44% of Americans can't cover $400 emergency. 9,333 is the average credit card debt for a balance carrying a household. And you know what? $37,000 in interest paid over the next 30 years for credit cards. 1/3 of Americans have zero in retirement savings. Right? How are those statistics even possible? It all makes sense when you know that only 28 states make students take at least one class on money in high school. And one of those that they do is kind of like learning how to balance a checkbook, which, by the way, millennials and Gen Z don't even use anymore. So, do you think that's enough financial education? What percentages of schools teach sex education? You guessed it. It's 50 out of 50. The one thing you can figure out on your own, they actually teach. So the one thing you may never figure out on your own, they don't teach, and it's about money. And that's a big issue. So let's spend a few minutes learning about something called compounding interest, or I like to say the power of compounding interest. And the power of compound interest refers to the growth potential of money over time by leveraging the magical concept of compounding. So, which is which is basically interest paid on the sum of deposits plus and all interest previously paid. So we'll get a quick breakdown into what all that means. Einstein, though, Albert Einstein, who's considered a genius, he said compound interest is the greatest mathematical discovery of all time. It's also been called the eighth wonder of the world. You may know this, there's only seven, but Einstein calls this the eighth wonder of the world. He also says, he who understands this earns it, and he who doesn't pays it. So one of the most important aspects of compound interest is rate of return. So check out this example where the amount saved per month and the time are the same. So the only change is the rate of return. So if you save money in this example, a 1% return in the small green at the bottom, saying you're earning 1%, your money would be a little over $100,000. At 3%, the purple band, it's 179,000. But look at the blue band at the top. At a 9% rate of return, you would end up with over $1 million. Now, let's talk about time value of money. You can never get time back or money lost. And there are three action steps to leverage time value of money. One is start now. Two, save regularly. And three, be patient. So let me show you some examples. We got Sarah and George here. Sarah's 22 years old. That's when she started, excuse me, Sarah started saving at 22 years old. George started saving at age 30. They both put away $4,000 per year. Sarah actually stops after 8 years. George, however, saves for 38 years in a row. Look at their totals. They both won the game, right? They both are net millionaires. Neither way is wrong, but George put in almost 5 times as much money as Sarah. How is this possible? Well, it's because even though Sarah stopped saving after 8 years, she started earlier. That's it. She leveraged the time value of money and it made a critical difference. And let me show you another example. The longer you wait, the more you must save, period. Look at how much you need to save to have $1 million at age 67. $8,589. All right. So this is assuming a 9% interest, annual interest rate, compounded monthly. But look at age 25. That person only needs to save $178 a month. Now, if you didn't take a class like this or you wait until 45 to start saving, that number jumps to over $1,200 a month. And what if you wait until you're 55, right? So the moral of the story is it's never too late to start saving, but it's always best to start now. So speaking of starting early, here's another powerful concept for leveraging the time value of money. This is for you baby boomers that are out there who have maybe grandkids or some parents who have very young kids. It's a concept called the $1 million baby. Check this out. Only 20% of children will receive an inheritance. So who in here today would kind of love to make sure their kids and grandkids are really set for retirement? Well, if you want to give your child $1 million at their retirement, which is more likely? You either give each of them $1 million in cash, all right? Or um, you kind of develop a plan to put away a fraction of that amount for each child when they're young. Right. So here's a way to think about it. How many of you have purchased a used car before? Have you looked at your used car at used car prices recently? And let me say this, and let me ask you this. Is it unreasonable for someone to put $2,500 down and pay 250 a month for 4 years for a used car? No, it's not. Now, let me ask you this. What's more important, a used car or your child's future? So it took the same used car money you could use and the time value of money to ensure your kid have at least $1 million at retirement. All right. So here's all that person did was said, hey, I'm gonna save for my kid. Make a commitment, 2,500 down, 250 a month. If I can earn a 6.5% annual rate, compounded monthly, I can get to $1 million by the time that kid's a million. Why? Because it's called the magic of compounding interest. All right. So let me show you another magic trick. It's called the rule of 72, right? Um, the rule of 72 is just a mental math shortcut that the wealthy use, and they've used it for years, but it's absolutely essential that everyone learns this. Okay. And it's not complicated. All right. So all of you've got bank accounts, retirement statements, and things where you can actually look and find out what your interest rate is. All you do is you simply divide any interest rate into the number 72, and it tells you how long it will take for that money to double. It works for you if you save money, but it can work against you if you don't. All right. So here's an example of 1%. Takes 72 years for $1 to turn into $2. Very long time. Very, very long time. Yet people do this very often. There's probably about $10 trillion in this country earning less than that. All right. So at 3%, your money doubles every 24 years. 6%, 12 years. 9%, 8 years. If you're earning 12%, you can get your money to double 6 years. So that's more like it. Right. So here's just an example of Zoe in the book. She got an inheritance of $10,000. Okay. So if she saved that money for retirement with a 6% return, she would end up with about $160,000. That's four doubles over that time. But what if she could double her rate of return at 12%? Take a guess how much she would end up with. All right. Well, here's a good example of that. Let's say she was earning 12. There we go. All right. Sorry. Eight doubles. She'd have about 2.5 million simply because she placed her money in the right kind of place. All right. So that's how important understanding the rule of 72 is. That's kind of why we're here today. All right. So here's another way to look at it. If you divide 0.15% into 72, you're looking at $480. Excuse me, 480 years of your money to double by year 2504. All right. So your great grandkids will be thrilled about it, but that's just too long. All right. And this is where a lot of money is earning very low interest rates. Now, just so we're clear, the same place that gives you 0.15% can charge you 22% more for a credit card. That means their money doubles every 3.2 years. Now you see why the subtitle of the book is Stop Being a Sucker. You need to know how money works today, not tomorrow, today. Anybody ever noticed, this is in the old days, but did you ever notice when banks, they would give you suckers when you wait in line, or they give it to your kids? Do you happen to know what the brand is? Uh, well, they're called Dum Dums. Look it up. Look it up. You can't make it up. I'm trying to tell you. All right. But that's the facts. Let's dive into the 7 money milestones. All right. Now we're going to cover some important financial concepts. Now that we've covered the concepts that you need to know, now it's time to put them to work. So knowledge without action is meaningless. You have to put these concepts to work. So these are 7 money milestones. We'll kind of tap into each of these one by one. But milestone number one, financial education. That's why you're here today. So the first step is to become a lifelong learner with financial education. I've been doing this close to almost 20 years now, guys. I still learn about stuff. Things change. So since this information isn't taught in school, how do you do that? Well, you've already started by attending the class. A second way is to kind of read the book. And how do you further your knowledge from there? Um, well, always kind of volunteer to get on a class, get on a course, learn about this stuff. There's a lot of free resources out there where you can really take advantage of. So the second step of financial education is to work with a professional. Like I said, these things do change. So one reason is such crucial steps because there are there's entirely new financial products available. Almost every year, something new is coming out. So keep that in mind. Along with these new products, there are benefits. So you need to know someone who kind of speaks that language and can help you cut through the noise. Someone who knows what can work today to help you reach your goals. All right. Next is number two, which is proper protection. So as we build your financial strategy, it's like building a house. We have to build on a solid foundation. Proper protection and protecting your family and finances from the unexpected is absolutely foundational. You need a strategy that self-completes, even if you aren't around to complete it. That's why proper protection starts with life insurance. Right? So only 59% of Americans have life insurance, and about half of those are actually underinsured. Okay. When it comes to life insurance, there's really two major questions we get asked all the time. All right. The first question is, how much life insurance do I need? How much life insurance do I need? Well, a rule of thumb, maybe you might want to write this down, but rule of thumb is if you can, and if you can afford it, get 10 times your annual income. Okay, here's the reasons why. There's an acronym I'll share with you. It's called DIME, DIME. D stands for debt. So if you pass away, calculate if there's any debt that will be transferred to someone else, loved one, spouse, etc. I is income replacement. 10 times your annual income replacement. Okay. M is mortgage. If there's a mortgage there, if something happens to you, what happens to the home? E, education. You may have young kids, right, that are dependent on your income, and they may want to, or you may just want to have something for their school if you pass away. So keep those things in mind. All right, now long-term care is something you should also consider. Another one of these living benefits. So what do you think of when you hear the term long-term care? I think of an elderly person, a nursing home. However, 37% of people who receive long-term care are actually under age 65. It's because of illness, accidents. Those things happen. So it's not just for old people. I want to be very clear on that. How many people know someone who has been affected by a long-term care situation? The fact is 70% of us will need long-term care, but only 8% in their 50s. All right. Now, let's talk about emergency funds. If you're currently living paycheck to paycheck, like many people are today, I don't know about you guys, but California is expensive. I live in San Diego. Oh my God, I pay for the weather here. So emergency funds could be the insulation that helps protect you from financial disasters if something happens. Just think about what's happening north of San Diego and LA with those fires and everything. That's a big issue that a lot of people are not really prepared for. All right. So the general rule of thumb is to have 3 to 6 months of income on hand. All right. So here's some sample annual incomes and how much you need. So if you're making annual income of 30,000, you want to have 3 months, that's about 7,500. 6 months is about 15,000. If you make 100,000, you want to have about 25,000 for 3 months, 50,000 for 6 months. Right. Uh, Two rules for emergency funds. Rule number one, your emergency fund is only, I'll repeat, only for unexpected emergencies. Okay, that's all. It's not for gifts, getaways, BOGO sales, none of that. Rule number two, when you have that inevitable emergency, use your emergency fund. That's what it's for. I can't tell you how many people we see that when their air conditioner goes out, they put it on a credit card so they can get Sky Miles. So if you don't have an emergency fund or you don't properly use it, you can go further into debt, which brings us to milestone number 4, debt management. Once you've worked with like a financial pro to square away like your proper protection, emergency funds. It's time to talk about managing your debt. Milestone 4. Before you can fully enjoy financial security and independence, you need to look at your spending habits, and strive to reduce and eventually um, eliminate your debt. Right. So we hate to say this, but in our culture, debt is a sweeping crisis. It's perpetuated by a society of suckers, led astray by the desire for instant gratification. I know that's a mouthful, but it's true. There's no shame in admitting you struggle with debt. I've been there before. It's one of the most common threats to having a sound financial future. All right, so the average American has about 21,000 in personal debt, not including mortgages, and many have much more. And don't forget, many Americans suffer from some kind of anxiety relating to debt. So when debt is removed, we can actually enjoy life more fully, more freely. So here are 5 tips to eliminate and stay out of debt. Here's one. Know what you owe. Very important. No more late payments. Those are killer. Go after one debt at a time. Have a strategy with that. Stop charging that card you're trying to get rid of, and cancel unused subscriptions, and maybe even consider, when things are a little bit better, refinancing your mortgage. I know that's not really the best time to do that, but it will come. All right. So you may have heard this, but by law, every American has the right to a free credit report every 12 months. Many people make this mistake of Googling annual credit report. Um, when you do that, they get tricked into entering their credit card into a subscribe to a free trial for a credit monitoring service. And of course, they forget to cancel the service after the free trial. And now they're going even further in the debt when they're trying to get out of the debt in the first place. So just so you know, you can go to something called annualcreditreport.com, and it's free. Doesn't cost anything. Okay. And according to the Federal Trade Commission, 79% of all credit reports have errors. 79% of them. So it's important to check your report periodically for mistakes or even identity theft. Once you visit annualcreditreport.com, you can kind of you'll be directed to websites for the 3 credit bureaus: TransUnion, Experian, Equifax. On these sites, you can check your inaccuracies, file a dispute on the spot. None of that should cost you any money. Okay. All right. Next up, increasing cash flow. Addressing your debt helps when you can increase cash flow. That's milestone number 5. When you reduce your debt, you have more income to use. But what are some other ways to increase cash flow besides eliminating debt? Well, one way is to earn more money by creating a side gig, starting a part-time business. I've seen people do Uber or Lyft, Uber Eats and stuff like that, just to generate some extra income. There are also things you can do to make the money you have coming in go a little farther. All right, so let's address 4 tips to increase cash flow quickly. Start with the first 2. The first way to help you increase cash flow quickly is to create a budget. Uh, it used to be that you had to do it manually with a ledger or a spreadsheet. Now there are a slew of great apps that you can use to help work through that, planning, tracking, nailing your budget. Do some Google reviews, read up, download a couple apps, and find out the ones that work for you. Second, you should evaluate your homeowner and car insurance. Now, if you're a terrible driver, like I used to be in my 20s, you probably want to keep a low deductible. But if you consider yourself a decent driver, you should think about switching to a higher deductible, which may help lower your premiums and free up cash that you can use to build wealth. You should also consider where you keep your savings and emergency fund. Just because you keep some cash liquid and available doesn't mean those dollars need to be dead money, meaning they're not really making money. And finally, the big one is PMI. I won't dive too much into that, but private mortgage insurance is required by most mortgage lenders. When homeowners choose to put down a low down payment on a house, as you build your equity in your property, you can reach a point when you are no longer required to maintain PMI. Okay, so keep that in mind as well. Let's go to the sixth money milestone, which is building wealth. So now that you've freed up all this extra cash flow, it's time to put it to work and to build wealth. But there are four threats every builder, every wealth builder must conquer. And think of these as your wealth building enemies. Each will come at you from different directions. So to beat them, we'll have to address them individually. So let's start with one of the worst. It's called procrastination. All right. I like to say, what's the largest nation in the world? It's procrastination. All right. But listen to this quote. Procrastination is hands down our favorite form of self-sabotage. Ouch. So how do you stop procrastinating? All right. Learn how money works. Stop being a sucker, right? All right. Inflation is also known as the tax of time. The tax of time. According to the government, the annual inflation rate has averaged right about 2.8 for the last 100 years. So let's apply the rule of 72 to inflation. If if we divide 72 by 2.8 years, we can see that the value of our dollars is cut in half every 25.7 years. Many people, maybe even you, are saving their money in accounts below the rate of inflation. So no wonder people are in such bad financial shape, right? And inflation, as you'll see in this slide, has really skyrocketed. So inflation was 4.7 in 2021. This is post-pandemic. In 2022, it increased to 7.86. That's the highest it's been in the last 40 years. In other words, our purchasing power has decreased severely over just 2 years. On average, you would have to spend over 12 times more money today versus 2020 to purchase the exact same thing. Of course, it depends on what you're buying, right? But let's talk about that. Here are some examples of how inflation impacted the price of some products you spend your money on. Read a few of them here. Look, I had just bought eggs just last week and the price was like $7. I almost passed out when I looked at it. All right. But look at the increase on gas, 43%. Look at coffee. I know you guys drink coffee. I know you Starbucks lovers. I know you're out there. That's high. In 2022, the real average hourly earnings, what people are making, actually went down. So that can make inflation feel even worse. So impact of losses is another one. So if I say you have to find a way to reposition your money so it can grow to outpace inflation, what places to put it come to mind? Definitely the stock market, right? Um, of course it does. And for some of you, that may be a good option. However, wherever you reposition your money, you have to address the impact of losses. So let's say if you lose 50% of your investment, which happened twice in the stock market in the last 25 years, what percentage of gain would you need to get back to 100%? All right. Well, it seems logical that a 50% gain will get you back even, right? Well, let's do the math. If you lose 50% of $10,000, you now have $5,000. It seems like a 50% gain would get you back to even, correct? But what's 50% of 5,000? Well, 50% gain on 5,000 is 2,500. That only gets you to 7,500. Seems seems our logic was off, but the truth is it takes 100% gain after a 50% loss to get back to even. And that's not easy to do, which is why it's so important to protect what you have. Maybe, there's a reason why Warren Buffett famously said this about investing. He said, rule number one, never lose money. Rule number two, never forget rule number one. All right. So what can you do to prevent losses? First, look at every option to reduce the risk. Second, consider how best to diversify your portfolios. Third, utilize the financial vehicles for your situation. Remember, again, don't procrastinate. Consider inflation and talk with a pro about ways to reduce or remove the impact of losses from your strategy. Early in the class, we talked about new products that are kind of out there and stuff. But one of the best features of these products is that they can minimize and in some cases eliminate risk from your portfolio. So it's really important to kind of make sure you seek proper guidance and advice when you're dealing with protecting your assets.
Yeah,
All right.
and Sheik, we have a number of
Yeah.
questions, but
Oh,
I'm going to
okay.
wait until your presentation is done.
Okay. I'm almost done, Patricia. So I'll kind of zoom through the rest. But next is impact of taxes, the fourth biggest and far the biggest threat to build wealth, the impact of taxes. So the tax strategy you put in place today can determine how much money you actually get to keep, how much you pay the government, and ultimately how much you leave for your kids. So we all know how we feel about taxes. Nobody likes paying taxes. I don't know anyone that does. I once looked at a receipt and it had federal, state, city, county tax. I was like, good Lord, what is going on? So it's easy to fall into a trap of thinking that as bad as taxes are now, it can get, but I want you to understand it could get worse. Here's why I say that. Uh, if you can look at this chart here, the top marginal federal income tax is now over 40%. For the majority of the last century, the top marginal tax bracket was well over 50%. So during the fiscal year in 2021, the IRS collected more than $4.1 trillion in gross taxes. They processed more than 261 million tax returns and issued more than 1.1 trillion in tax refunds. That doesn't count state or local income taxes that might apply. So today with record government debt, 35 trillion, record Medicare expenses, record Social Security obligations, which way do you think taxes are going to be headed? All right. Now, three ways your money can be taxed. They call it tax now, tax later, tax never. Which sounds best? Tax never, right? So think like a farmer for a second. Would you rather pay taxes on the seeds you plant or the harvest at the end? It's the seeds, of course. The same thing applies to your money. Would you rather pay taxes on your money before it grows or after? So you would rather pay taxes before rates go up or after. All right, so that's a question. Now, we know the tax now option is not optimal. If you have to pay taxes every year on your gains, then less money is in your account to compound. That interferes with compounding interest. Many Americans save for retirement using a qualified retirement plan like a traditional IRA or 401k. And this can be better than tax now accounts because it defers taxes, meaning you pay them later, and allows you to take full advantage of compound interest. So these are tax later accounts that defer taxes until retirement when they might be higher. So there's kind of a pro and con to that. But it's like paying taxes on the harvest. All right. Um, so
I'm
how do we
sorry.
make sure?
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Sheik, how many more slides so we can,
Uh,
gauge how many questions we have?
I think we've got seven more.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
seven more.
Thank
Then we're
you.
done. Then we're done.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'll jump through this. This is quick. Um, three ways to do it. Okay, in terms of looking for things that are tax free. Okay, uh, government bonds, municipal bonds, Roth IRAs, and permanent life insurance. Those are basically the ways. Um, I can skip this. All right, skip that. Okay. Next, protect wealth. All right, that's number seven, final milestone. Protect your wealth by creating a will, guarding your legacy. This is even something the rich miss sometimes. Here's an example: Prince and Aretha Franklin, both of whom died not too long ago, had sizable estates, but either had an estate plan, and both left their families and business partners with emotional, financial distress. So it happens to famous people, it happens to not so famous people, but it happens. Four documents your estate plan should include. One, you need a will, a financial power of attorney, an advanced healthcare directive or a living will, and a HIPAA release. Okay. And if you think estate planning will be too expensive or time consuming, you haven't considered the cost to your loved ones down the road. It's something called the death tax. Some may know it as probate. So it's a big milestone to get checked off and very important. So with that being said, these are very critical money milestones to help you reach your financial summit. And, you know, we want to make sure that you've got that squared away. So with that, I'm going to hand the mic back over to Patricia and say thank you and appreciate you.
No, thank you so much. And I know this was a lot of information. So to all of you who joined us, who just joined us, first of all, you just heard from Sheikh Kouliate, who's a financial educator. And I'm Patricia Perez, and I serve as ARP California State President Emeritus. And even if you joined late, no worries, because we're recording this. So later you'll be able to watch this video and, review what you missed, or if information came at you very fast, you can watch the video later on. And you can, of course, watch the video at aarp.org. Let's talk dinero. And I apologize for moving it along, but it's just that this is the opportunity of people to ask questions. And one of the questions was about capital gains.
Mm,
If you could share just some insight on capital gains.
mm. Yeah, capital gains is a tricky one, but essentially, when you cash out on something, if you had a certain amount of money and that money made money over time, there's something called capital gains. So think of it like this: if you get an inheritance of 100,000 and you invest that 100,000 and it turns into 130,000, well, that $30,000 is, depending on where the investment is subject to capital gains. Even in things like government bonds, municipal bonds. Only thing where you don't deal with capital gains would be in like things like Roth IRA, life insurance. I think, and there may be one other thing, but capital gains is something that is a tricky one. So I probably need to do a whole class on that one, Patricia. But
Okay,
yeah,
not a problem. And one of your recommendations was, of course, to seek expert advice, right?
yeah,
That's very personal. So maybe
yeah,
a financial advisor may work, because I
yeah.
know it, I mean, everything that you talked about, from managing your debt and taxes, that is a very customized information that you need. So always, look for a investment professional.
And let me say that there is a difference between capital gains and interest. Okay, so um, without geeking out on you, just there is a difference. So be careful with the terminology. Go ahead, Patricia.
No, no, thank
Yeah.
you. And you were talking early in your presentation about rate of returns, and you were talking
Mhm,
about 6% and 12%.
mhm.
And a question was like, what kind of investments would yield a 12% return?
Yeah. Let's put a disclaimer before we answer
Yes.
that. If anyone says, "Hey, I've got 12% returns and guarantee them, pack your bags and run." Okay. Just so we're clear,
If
it's
it's
not
too
happening.
good,
Right.
it's
Too good
too
to be true, it
good.
probably is. Yeah. Is there ways to earn 12%? Absolutely. But there's a risk return aspect to it. Um, Many people are earning well over 12% in the stock market. But there are products out there where you can kind of leverage that and also protect for losses. Without getting into products and stuff, I would say this. Um, Absolutely, there's a way to earn 12% returns, but you just have to understand the pros and the cons to it. And part of it is if you're in the investment game, that also involves a risk reward. Um, so yeah,
Right. No, no, you're right. And some of us, uh, at, at an advanced stage, we need to be a
right.
little bit more careful and a little bit more cautious when it comes to investments. So you're right. If it's
Yeah,
something
yeah,
is too good
yeah,
to be true, we need
right.
to,
Yeah.
and like you were saying, it starts with education, right?
Mhm.
Learning,
Yeah,
finding out as much as you can.
yeah.
Uh, a question is, what asset allocation ratio is best for a person with a pension?
Asset allocation ratio is
Ratio.
best for a
I
person with a
know.
pension. Wow. Okay. Wow.
I'm glad
I
you're
would,
here for
yeah.
that.
That sounds like an isolated situation. It would really depend on where they are, what's going on, what their investment objectives are, what are they trying to do with this money. So you say with a personal pension? Is that what you said?
Yes,
Yeah.
for a person with a pension, yes.
Person with a pension.
Yeah, the asset allocation ratio, if the person is already retired and has a pension.
I'd have to sit with them
Okay,
one-on-one
all
in
right,
order to answer that.
yeah.
Sorry.
No, 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 no problem. Another question is, you talked about debt and that targeting debt by reducing it one at a time. And we've had this conversation in other sessions too, that sometimes people start, for example, if they have credit cards, they start off with the one that has the highest interest. They start
Mhm.
paying that off. Or is it a better strategy to go like, the one where you owe the least and start paying it off,
Yeah.
one by one?
Yeah. To answer that, Patricia, there's really two main strategies. One is called the snowball, one is called the avalanche. So for let's use the one with the lowest balance. Okay. If it's someone who's like, you know what, I just want to get some wins. I just want to knock out some simple ones and get them out of my way. Um, the snowball would be the best one. Is like, hey, let me tack the smallest one because if I pay that off, whatever that payment is, $50, $100, I can pay it off quickly. I can now take that 50, $100 and I can look for the next small balance. Right. So I'm paying the highest on the small one. And as soon as that's paid off, I'm looking for the next small one. But I've compounded how much I put on there. And I start working on it. So statistically, it's said that the avalanche is probably going to save you, get you eliminated that debt quicker if you look for the highest interest rate. But some people just want some wins, and sometimes paying off that small balance helps. So a lot of times I find myself recommending snowballs for those types of clients.
Yeah. And and like you said, it's like a mental game,
Mhm.
right? You were saying how
Yeah,
even procrastination is like the worst enemy.
yeah.
Um, and with that, a question is, other than procrastination, what are the most common mistakes people make when setting financial goals, and how can we avoid them?
Mm. Mistakes. Other than procrastination, which is the biggest, um, I would say trying to do it alone, not really seeking guidance, or um, another one would be that's a big one, starting too late and then not really knowing where to start, or and sometimes not knowing who to trust. I don't know if that's necessarily a mistake. It's just sometimes people are out to get into your pockets, and unfortunately, because you don't have the proper guidance, you make a bad move or a bad call. I've seen that happen too.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
check their street cred. I would say, hey, ask them certain questions. Tell me how long you've been in the industry. What licenses do you have? Sometimes people like that. Are you a fiduciary? Things like that. Just kind of make sure you're in the right place with the right people.
Absolutely. And I'm one of those who believe it's never too late to start, no matter your
Yeah,
age. You just have
true.
to adjust your goals and your expectations, right?
Yep,
To,
yep,
to see what realistically you can do. But I'm just
Yeah.
so proud of everybody who's joining us today to start. I mean, what a
Yeah.
wonderful way to start the year is by
Yes.
getting our financial house in order. Um, let's see. Let's see. We have questions regarding, the cost for long-term care. Um, but like you were mentioning in your presentation, it is critical. So we can start looking into that and shopping around and seeing what we can do. But I can absolutely understand how important long-term care insurance
Yeah.
is.
And let me just say one thing on that. The biggest reason for bankruptcy currently is medical issues. So, and the costs keep going up as maybe most of the audience knows. So very crucial to just kind of have that, especially if you're younger, if you can get those things in place, it'd be some it's tricky because it's something you may not need, but if you need it, it's crucial to have it.
Absolutely. And considering many of the people joining us have gigs, right? Side gigs, like you were saying, driving for, Uber Eats or, you know,
Mhm.
I mean, some people rent out their swimming pools or backyards, right? Your
Yeah,
cars.
yeah,
I mean, there's
yeah.
so many things that
Airbnb, yeah, yeah,
Airbnb your house. I mean,
yeah.
so many ways you can sell on eBay. I mean, so many ways that you can do it. You can sell your crafts at events. I mean, so many ways. But of course, the best thing is, like you were saying, have your financial plan in place. So that way, if you cannot increase your revenue, then you adjust your expenses. And you gave some fabulous recommendations for everything from subscriptions. How many of us have a subscription we never use and we know we have to do it and we just haven't done it, right? All of these, 101, premium channels that we subscribe to that we don't even know we're
Yeah.
paying for.
Yeah. And they're tricky because sometimes they make it difficult for you to cancel the subscription. So don't give up on that. And cause hell if that's the case. If you can't find out how to cancel that subscription, don't hesitate to reach out to the management customer service and let them know that because that's becoming a big issue. Is hey, how do I cancel my subscription? And they make it sometimes some companies make it very complicated to do so.
Yeah. Somebody had a question about how do they hire a financial advisor? Uh, I mean, it's wonderful to have, financial help, but
Mm.
that does not mean you should not do your homework,
Yeah,
Sheik was
yeah,
telling us, of
yeah.
course, education. But do you have any advice about hiring a financial advisor?
Well, I would say this, if you one is if you know someone that is doing okay financially, maybe kind of go to that person and say, "Hey, who are you using to help you out?" Um, and birds of a feather flock together. So think of it that way, is if they've got a guy that they use, or they may know a guy who uses a guy and that they trust. So questions I would ask is, hey, do you know someone? Number two, do you trust them? Um, Number three, how have they helped you? And then kind of start there. Kind of start there.
Yeah, good idea. Word of mouth, right? Go
Yeah,
online as well.
absolutely.
But yeah, go with people
Yeah.
that you trust and you respect.
Yep.
Absolutely. Um, Somebody had a question about what advice do you have for managing rising interest rates on loans or credit cards?
Managing rising
Interest
interest rates
rates.
on loans and credit cards.
One is don't do
Um,
it, right?
right,
Don't stop charging.
right, right,
Yeah.
right.
But
Yeah, that would be, yeah, that's it right there. You said it.
remember when we were kids and we'd get one credit card to pay on another credit card?
Mhm,
Well,
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's one. But of course, like you were saying, in terms of debt reduction is maybe start looking at those interest rates and start, right? First of all,
Yeah, and in
stop
addition to
charging.
that, yeah, in addition to that, get clear on the rules. Get clear on the rules of the game. So sometimes it may feel like, I showed the interest rates on the credit cards. There's over 20%. That's a national average. So in some cases it may be bad. And I'll say this, when I think bank rates are going to drop eventually, And when that time comes, if you're paying 22% on something, and you may get some stuff in the mail. Hey, we'll give you 0% for 6 months. You better find out what it is after 7 months. So don't just jump in and on the 6 month unless you're very crystal clear on, hey, the window that they're giving me a 0% interest rate. I can knock out that debt. I will not use that card. I will make sure I eliminate that debt, because afterwards it may be even higher than what you're paying currently. So just kind of be aware, know the rules of the game. And sometimes there are certain cards where they can fluctuate interest rates, or if you miss a payment, they'll just beat you to death.
Yeah, true. And I
Hmm.
also want to add that ARP has lots of resources and information on the website. Please, I encourage, including how to find a financial advisor, but you can go to aarp.org. Let's talk dinero. Once again, aarp.org. Let's talk dinero. There you can, of course, also see the videos of other sessions that we've had before, and including this one. Soon you'll be able to do this one, view this video as well. And tons of free financial resilient resources and events, right? And AARP, this Let's Talk Dinero with ARP series features experts like you just heard from Sheik, who provide strategies on, we've talked about debt management, investing, retirement planning, entrepreneurship, and much more. Please, I invite everybody to mark their calendars. Mark your calendars for Monday, February 24 at 4 p.m. for our next Let's Talk Dinero with AARP, where we will be discussing how to create an emergency fund. Sheik, you were talking about that, how important it is to have that money, even though you were saying it's not for those sales. It
Hmm.
really is for
Right.
emergencies.
Emergencies.
Yeah,
Yep.
so we'll be talking about that on February the 24th at 4
Awesome.
p.m. But I also want to invite everyone to join us on Thursday, February 20th at 9 a.m. for Piggy Bank Essentials, where we will discuss the importance and issues related to power of attorney documents with financial advisor attorney Jana Davis. She will be explaining what these documents are used for, the considerations in naming someone to act on our behalf, the limitations and powers of the documents and how they should be reviewed, shared, and updated. And we'll focus on the power of attorney documents, but really only on financial matters only, on that one. So you can, of course, get more information on the site. Um, Sheik, I want to thank you so much. Any last piece of advice you have for people? Any final parting words you have for our audience?
Oh, yeah. It's make sure that you don't procrastinate. Um, Time, there's no guarantees on tomorrow. So if there's certain areas where hey, I'm struggling at, or I need to take care of, do your best. It's the beginning of the year. Good opportunity to just kind of reflect and say, hey, what happened in the last few years that I want to change? And if it's something about your finances, health, whatever it is, create an action plan, take some action steps, and then look for someone who is an expert in that field, and then kind of follow that advice.
Thank you so much. And please, everybody,
Welcome.
remember AARP is here for you with resources like the ones that she shared today, and lots of events to help you choose how you live as you age. So visit us online at aarp.org/let's talk dinero. And there you'll be viewing this video and other recordings and information on our upcoming events. Sheik, thank you so much. Thank you so much for,
You're welcome.
sharing your insight and being so amazing and so educational. So please,
Happy to
thank you.
serve.
Thank you, everybody. Feliz Año Nuevo a todos. Happy New Year to all. And we'll be seeing you in February. Thank you, everybody.